Hello and welcome. This is Roger Connect with Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast to help individuals like you both start and build successful accounting, bookkeeping, and tax businesses. This podcast is meant to help you with the things that you need to be aware of to run your business effectively and profitably. It's here that we address various topics with the experts, such as pricing, marketing, selling, onboarding, offering quality accounting services, retaining customers, client relationships, and so much more. Each week, I try to have an expert on the show to actually help you hear from those that are actually doing well and what it is that you can learn from them to apply in your business and also with your clients. For more than 20 years, I've worked with accounting professionals to help them successfully start and build their businesses, and I invite you to listen to these tips and tricks so that you can do the same. Now, with the weekly episodes, I have on guests that I'd like to actually highlight, and today happens to be Amber Duggar. Amber is the founder of Profit for Keeps. It's a system developed for online entrepreneurs to end the stress and anxiety around numbers. It's a holistic system combining personal finance and business cash flow strategies using Profit First and YNAB, which is you need a budget. Now, she has helped hundreds of coaches implementing this system and has helped thousands more calculate revenue goals that actually make sense. She is a certified health coach from IIN and worked in corporate finance for more than 15 years before venturing out on her own in 2015, and thrives to be being an independent business owner. Now, she loves traveling, wine, bicycles, knitting, and a good cup of tea when in England and a good cup of coffee when in Italy. Sweet Life is actually a purposeful money focused system. It's a high vibe Facebook community that you'll have access to from this podcast, where if you're a virtually service-based entrepreneur, you'll want to seek out this group to level up your money game. And there you'll find in the episode description the information you need to become part of that community. So with that being said, Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Roger. And hello to everyone listening to this. Such an honor to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. First of all, I've been looking forward to this simply because we met at a conference and had some great conversations. And from that, felt that what you had to share was perfect for the audience. So let's just kind of get some context here for everyone to have some premise. First of all, you're talking about money differently than an accounting professional may. Help me understand what it is that you think is different about your view of money and why it's so important.
Well, I think it starts with really truly embracing that concept of cash is king. Because right now, especially, we have so many different things. We don't know exactly what's happening, and having very intentional cash flow and a plan for that intentional cash flow is so important. And this really stemmed from early on in my career. I was a controller for the third largest nonprofit in the country. And my CFO insisted that I would do a cash flow report each and every morning. And it had nothing to do with QuickBooks other than pulling particular balances. It was all about how much cash we had, what was still outstanding in terms of any checks or anything like that, any sort of liabilities in terms of, our grants that we had promised to do certain work with, but really being able to see in that moment what is possible for us and what decisions can be made. And that report was the most important report that went out every morning. And it went to our president, the CFO, and the chairman of the financial chairman on the board. And that was the beginning to seed that was planted that actually this is what people need to make decisions, not financial statements that are 3 weeks old or looking at balance sheets. That can be great for historical analysis, but not for running a business. And when we are entrepreneurs, being able to pay ourselves consistently, not just enough to cover our bills and skate by, but to truly live thriving lives where we really enjoy having a massage every week, if that's what calls to you, or being able to take your family on trips and not feel this guilt of, oh, should I be spending the money this way? It's a very intentional process. And I think when we look at it from that perspective, our revenue now really is driven by our dreams. And when we have that, we have enough money for the things that really matter most to us.
When I hear you share that, one of the things that really resonates is the fact that people sometimes have healthy or unhealthy relationships with money, how they view it, how they use it, how they leverage it. And you were just sharing how the cash flow statement was such an important part of that nonprofit. As you observed this, what were some of the healthy things that you felt were going on as it related to money?
Within the business
Hmm.
itself? Yeah. Well, I think it was extremely healthy to use a line of credit the way I think that it was intentioned to be used, not just as a cover things because we don't have enough cash coming in, but truly helping with the timing of cash flow. So I think that was one really healthy way of using a line of credit in a way that we know, okay, we have grants that haven't hit the bank balance yet, but we know they're coming in, and therefore it's possible for us to use this line of credit as a buffer. Another really healthy thing, I think, was just the intention of doing it every morning, and what you focus on grows. So when you are very clear of where your cash position is each and every day, you become more familiar with it. And every uncomfortable feeling stems from unfamiliarity. So a lot of people have blocks, subconscious blocks even, around money and financials. And we're talking directors of multi-billion-dollar corporations. I've supported directors in that role, and there are blocks, and they are really difficult because it does handicap us from really being able to use the information to make strategic and decisions that are not emotionally based, which can stem from our own money blocks. So I think the other healthy thing is really just having that intention of understanding it and having it be a consistent part of your day.
Good. Now, there is also this distinction between how we manage our personal finances and as business owners, how we may be running or making decisions with the business finances or money. How do those sometimes conflict?
Hmm. Well, I think sometimes it can all be really down to self-worth. And that's not what anyone wants to hear, right? Especially not me. I don't want to hear that due to my own self-worth, maybe I'm not paying myself enough, or maybe I'm having trouble putting real value to the things that I desire or I desire for my family. But ultimately, when we are able to reconcile that when our cup is full, we're able to truly make that lasting impact to everyone else. So, from a personal standpoint, I think it is very much integrated with the business because as solo entrepreneurs or small businesses, we are truly doing this for some type of freedom. It may be time freedom, it may be location freedom, it may be autonomy just in wanting to do it the way that you see as the best fit for how you want to live your life. But we all here desire to be able to do that without feeling like we're suppressed. So that, of course, stems then into integrating the personal finance with the business. Now, I do believe that business investments are very different than business expenses. I don't have a single business expense, and that includes things that may not be super sexy or flashy, but we're very intentional in our business with the things that we're investing in to truly see that, yes, this will save us immense amount of time. This will save us a whole bunch of trial and error. And every single investment we make, whether we get the outcome that we were desiring or not, there's a lesson learned there. And so when we shift into that, I think it's really powerful to see that sometimes it may not look completely smart on paper to be investing in something, but if you see as a business owner that leap that you're going to be able to make and almost that bending of time, it can really help us feel confident with that decision, knowing the bigger picture overall.
Very good. Now, you obviously started your own business. I mentioned that it was 2015. What caused you to want to start the business, and what gave you the confidence to actually make that step and begin?
It was very hard. I will say that. I have I think the Myers-Briggs personality of the least likely to go into business for themselves. So
Okay.
for any of you that are listening and feeling some resistance or feeling some fear, know that you are not alone. It is very normal to feel that way. And so I will say a year before I left full-time corporate, it was 2014, and I was really inspired by my now husband, boyfriend at the time, for stepping out of his expertise and very well-paying job and leaving to become a fitness trainer. And it's his passion to really help with functional fitness. And I was beginning to really start to question if I wanted to be in the role that I was in my own industry for the next 30 or 40 years. And I was just feeling like my soul was dying a bit each and every day in my cubicle. And I just thought, honestly, I would never touch money again with a 10-foot pole when I decided to leave corporate. But what led up to that decision was just some contemplating and really deciding to take some action in another direction. And I actually met my husband in the gym. So I started off studying for personal certification to do training. And during that process, I was doing a lot of other things to just incorporate things that I loved in life, like gardening and riding my bike and doing things a little bit slower. I was living in the DC metro area at the time. And so I was riding my bike home one afternoon, beautiful day, and the bike was new and it was not put together properly. And I was going down a really big hill, 19 miles an hour, and the bike fell apart and I landed face first into the asphalt. And as I watched the asphalt go in front of me, the bike had fallen on top of me, and then everything was just completely silent. And I was completely conscious. And the very first thought was, I'm so grateful to have my teeth, because I knew I hadn't hit here, I'd hit here on my cheek. And then I started to feel around, oh, thank goodness I have my nose, okay. And it was just this overwhelming feeling of gratitude. And so after this accident, 6 weeks later, we realized that while I had physically healed, I was still extremely sensitive to loud noises. And so we found out that I ended up having MTBI, or mild traumatic brain injury, abnormal EKG. So I spent a year recovering. And during that process, I was listening to podcasts and learning about health coaching, the beautiful world of doing your own thing and not being in corporate. So I invested in that, worked 20 to 30 hours a week on the certification for a year. And at that point is when I left my job. And it was scary. And at the same time, I knew that there was no other decision for me. And shortly after that, I moved to Bali, Indonesia. And there is where I started to really fall into the world of entrepreneurship and startups. And I was being asked, like, what are you doing for your money? You seem so settled, like you're not stressed out about money. I said, well, that's not true, but I do have this system that's helping me be very, very intentional with my savings and the income that's coming in. And that's what led me to this holistic blend of the coaching and feminine energetic side of money, but also the masculine systems. And so we ended up really shifting into that role, and it's been a beautiful process ever since.
So when you were in Bali, what came from that experience that got you to then have the business you have today? That was obviously a pivotal moment for you. What was that experience that really helped you be where you are now?
I think it was really listening to what people were asking. So I was quite resistant to go into this field. I actually had no desire to whatsoever. Like I said, I went to Bali to get away from this, get away from the financial statements and the Xerox sounds and all of that. I just wanted to be in a bamboo, barefoot co-working space. But what I think led me to that was the encouragement of others to say, I really want to sit down and talk to you about what I'm struggling with. And it was breaking down that barrier of truly being vulnerable with what we do have concerns with when it comes to money. So I started having conversations with dozens of people and learning that, wow, everyone thinks they're alone. Everyone thinks that they're the only one that's not good with money. They believe that inherently there's just something wrong with them and they just need to deal with it. And I truly have a deep belief that we are all very good with money. And for those that don't believe that, it's simply that they haven't found a system that really makes sense for them. And so that's really kind of where it started, was having these conversations. And then I was being asked to do skill shares and go into retreats where we would be talking more about the mindfulness and the mindset around money. And so we would do these money love dates. And these money love dates allowed people to express their fears and concerns around money. And that was such a healing process because people would hear from someone completely different that they didn't even know a very similar fear. And when we do not feel isolated, when we do not feel alone, we have so much more empowered energy to really look at this from different perspectives. And that is what I see really helped kind of transition this, because then it was this is a must for me. This is not a should, this is a must for me. And it was in Singapore, and I found this book, The Crossroads of Should and Must. And that's where I really saw this is the pivot point, and I let go of the health coaching clients as the contract ended, and then I moved into this direction.
Perfect. So
shortly thereafter,
so tell us about your business now. What are you doing with business owners and people, helping them with money?
So we really have a very simple framework, and it works really well. And I believe that taking away as much complexity as possible when it comes to money allows us to make strategic decisions and be really honest with ourselves about what we're looking to do. So we essentially help business owners get really clear on what it is they actually want resources to have for their personal lives. So instead of saying, oh, well, this is your financial review and this is your analytics and this is your profit assessment, we don't do that. Instead, we ask, what is it that you want to experience and you want to do in this lifetime that you don't have to attach it to, oh, I need money for that, or, oh, if I had more money, I would do this. Just releasing that and looking at this from a perspective of, imagine all of your bills are paid for, your personal, your business. What is it you want to do with that extra money that's coming into your business? And we call this profit for joy, because this is truly what motivates us when we're experiencing it. And the more we experience those things, and they're individual to all of us. I doubt, Roger, you would want to go to Norway to knit for a month, but that's something I have on my list. But for those listening, just take a moment and ask yourself, what is there something that I would want to experience or do that is beyond just my regular day-to-day expenses? This is an example of what we really like to focus on so that we can then reverse engineer a business goal, a revenue goal, a business strategy to attain that revenue goal that allows you to consistently pay yourself on a monthly basis, pay your business investments, have enough money set aside for taxes, and still have intentional cash in the bank profit. And that in itself is how we help clients. And they say that it really does help them with their marriage. It helps them with their debt, if they have any. It helps them reconcile their feelings around that as well. And it's just so expansive when you get to the place where you really see what number you want to be reaching to make these things happen for you in your life.
I love what you're describing, because similarly, when I work with our business owner clients, I do a similar exercise. It's where we refer to it as engage and manifest. And the whole idea is essentially to say, give me your why. It's that Simon Sinek kind of element of give us your why and what it is that you're doing and what are you intending to achieve from this. And many business owners, when they're asked these questions, they'll share, never has anyone asked these questions and gone this deep with them. And it's causing them to kind of deeply go into their minds as to really, why am I getting out of bed and doing all this? Once they have that clarity, it gives them much more purpose and intention in the work that they're doing, because they can now tap better into the reasons of why. And so I like how you're doing this, because you're kind of reverse engineering their financial goals. Why are we all going about this? Are we living to work or working to live? And that narrative kind of changes when you flip like that. So when you kind of reverse engineer their revenue goals, why is that important, and how does that change things for people?
Well, honestly, I think many of us, our nervous systems are not settled. They're really stressed out when we don't have awareness of where our money is, what it's doing for us. Do we have enough money for the bills in the next couple of weeks? It creates a lot of contaminated time. And since we all have the same amount of units of time, and time is the only resource that's not renewable, focusing on allowing us to reduce that contaminated time as much as possible is really freeing, because it then unleashes a lot of creative energy, creativity, and just flow. So having that aspect and looking at it from that perspective, reverse engineering your goal, just like with anything else, we reverse engineer a lot of stuff. But I don't think that many people have done it with money, and it's not because we don't want to. It just really hasn't been talked about before. Not in my experience anyway. And so a lot of business coaches don't actually have the tools to help with something like that. And so, just a quick story, when I first was starting out as a health coach, my business coach that I was starting to work with, she had a program that was make 5K a month as a health coach. And I was in the DC area and I knew my numbers, and I knew that with taxes and everything, business expenses, I was going to need at least $8,500 a month. And she said, well, let's start with something realistic. And I just remember this sinking feeling of, how can she possibly tell me to go for a goal that is going to either put me in debt, or put me in a position where I can't pay my taxes, or put me in a position where I'm stressing all the time? Just didn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And while it wasn't her fault, I don't think that she knew how to share it in a way that made sense to reverse engineer the goal. I think that's the missing piece from almost every business. And we always feel like we don't have enough money, but it's because we haven't been striving for the right goal. So, my clients say now that they look at it from this perspective, and some people's percentages are different than others, obviously, but when they see that owner's pay, for example, is 50% of their revenue, when they look at a tube of toothpaste for $4, they're like, I can't make $4 and buy the toothpaste. I need to make $8 to buy this toothpaste. So it just changes your perspective a bit.
Yeah, and it costs $8, not $4. So you've hit on something I think so powerful with the reverse engineering, because when I oftentimes have conversations with people who are in this startup phase of wanting to begin either offering accounting, bookkeeping, or tax services, one of the very first questions I will ask is, how much money do you need to make? Not want to make, just need to make to cover your financial needs. The exact question you were trying to assess when you determined it was $8,500 for you to meet your financial goals and maintain that lifestyle you were familiar with. Well, here's what's fascinating. More often than not, they can't answer the question. They don't even know what the number is. And I'm fascinated by that. You're wanting to start a business and you're going into this not knowing how much you need in order to be successful. And so that's, I think, the beginnings of the reverse engineering that I'm experiencing. But then the second point is once we've settled on a number, what is a number that you would be comfortable with, that you're familiar with already? And if you could sustain, you'd be happy. Okay, this is the dollar amount you want. It varies person to person, marketplace to marketplace, city to city, but they declare what that number is. And I say, great, let's talk about what does it take for you to then earn that money on a monthly basis, whether you're offering bookkeeping services, accounting services, and we go through the numbers. But once they get clarity as to how many clients they would need and how much work you'd need to be doing in order to generate that revenue, it's almost like there's a stress release, because it now makes sense. Now I know what I have to do to meet my financial obligations to live the lifestyle I would like to enjoy. And that piece that comes just from that reverse engineering is so gratifying, because now they can work with intent. I know what I'm working towards. And it's so much more, I think, fulfilling, because they're actually working with a very clear mindset as to what's expected of themselves. So I like that. Here's the next question for you then. Regarding money then, as accounting professionals, what should we learn? What should we be hearing from you when you've worked with these business owners? What might we be able to add to the conversation, or maybe even our services that we're maybe not doing now, but should for our clients' benefit financially?
Great question. Well, first of all, I really want to honor everyone here that's listening, because you are not the typical accountant or bookkeeper. You truly do see the bigger picture and really care deeply about your client's success. So I first just want to thank you for being in that space. I would say that from a different perspective, since I have managed accountants and bookkeepers in my role in corporate, in my experience, it's always been very focused on historical data and also making sure everything is categorized properly and that the journal entries are done properly. And there's so much headache in that administrative piece that we sometimes tend to not have a lot of time to focus on the needs of the company from a forward-looking perspective. And so one thing that I think is really pivotal for business owners to be able to have a conversation with you, the accountant or the bookkeeper, is more around what is it that we want to be making in the business based on our current goals and what we see in the next 6 to 12 months. Are we going to need to bring in new team? Are we going to need to bring in particular services that we haven't yet invested in? What does the new revenue goal look like from that perspective? And so I think really seeing cash flow management as a $10,000 an hour task, not as something that is kind of done on the side, but a very intentional piece of your service offering, will do absolute, just be huge for your clients, because now they are able to speak to you with words that they understand. My clients don't really have to understand the profit and loss statement other than when they're looking at it from a tax perspective. We have a framework that allows them to see their money as if it were all in front of them in a big pile. So if you think about your money like right in front of you, and then you are organizing the cash that you have in front of you in envelopes with intention, you're now looking at it as a usable structure versus looking at bookkeeping, which, as we all know, you're never up to date on bookkeeping. You're at least a week behind because you're having to categorize and reconcile and do all of those things. But from the tangible perspective, it's just shifting your perspective and looking at it in a new light and dropping some of the patterns of thinking that we have about bookkeeping and accounting, and being more flexible of looking how we can really bring value to our clients from a forward-looking perspective.
I really appreciate that. One, thank you for your comments regarding the listeners. I couldn't agree with you more. These people are taking time out of their day, one way or another, to improve themselves and better service their clients. And it is a self-investment. And I appreciate you acknowledging that. But regarding your point, I agree with you. In the accounting profession, at least for the last number of years that I've been involved, say 5 years at least, I can definitely say that it's a recurring theme that we need to be doing more as accounting professionals, forward thinking for our clients. And whether it's bookkeeping in the sense that it's historical, moving into accounting where it's more analytical and doing the reports such as the budgets and forecasts, or it's extending it even further into advisory type roles, the CFO advisory coaching type capacity. Your point is right. We need to be doing more to actually help our business owners use this information that we've spent so much time organizing and collecting to actually be useful and purposeful as they run their businesses. And so to just be that historical recorder isn't enough. What we need to be doing is seeing that our role is beyond just doing the money management for tax purposes or for paying bills and payroll. It's literally to help the business become more profitable, more successful. It's meant to actually help us plan and prepare better so that we can avoid financial challenges that may come up. These things are all critical to our role. So you talked about this pile of money. I like that. The idea of taking all of your assets and worth and imagining them as these piles of bills, there's a value there. So what does, you describe the pile, but what does value really look like?
Well, I want to put that question on pause for just one
Okay,
moment and say one quick thing,
please.
which is the last piece that I wanted to answer with that other question that didn't come to me until you were talking is there are basically three things that your clients want to know. How much money do I need to be making to be able to pay myself consistently? And what is my forecast? Like, am I hitting those goals? Do I see myself hitting those goals? And otherwise, what is the gap there? So I, as a strategist, can then take action and bring those levels up. So the second thing would be the forecast. And the third thing is just really knowing that they have the money there to pay the bills that they have and not feel this pang of guilt, and being able to give themselves permission to spend the money that way that they desire. So I just wanted to put that there as well, because I think ultimately I have so many people come to me who say, my bookkeeper's horrible. I'm like, why? Well, because she's not making sure that I have enough money set aside for taxes. Well, technically, that's not the bookkeeper's responsibility unless she is taking on accounting or advisory roles, right? We all know that bookkeeping is very specific to historical inputting and categorizing of data. And so I think unfortunately, this industry does get a lot of unnecessary criticism because people are very confused as to what these different areas of money is and what the responsibility is. But to answer your question about value, okay, so what is value? That could go in so many different directions. But ultimately, what helped me so much with my own pricing and my own just structure of running my business was from Michael Hyatt. And he was sharing that, we typically do not value what comes naturally to us. So as someone who is a numbers person, someone who really loves the details, it's not really that exciting to invest a lot of money in someone else doing that for you if it's naturally something that comes to you with ease and that you enjoy it. But now I want you to think of something that you don't really enjoy or you don't know how to do and you don't feel comfortable with. And imagine that no longer feeling that and really being able to embrace it in a different perspective. The value that you are placing on that is so much more important. So putting ourselves in the shoes of our clients and seeing what is the value that they see our services as, like the relief that they receive, the peace of mind knowing that things are being taken care of. That is how we can really get to value-based pricing versus dollars for hours. I'm not sure if that's where you are going, but that's really what's coming to mind when you're asking me what is value.
Well, you actually didn't answer my question, but I like the answer you gave. The first thing is you're right. I think there is a misconception outside of the accounting profession. Well, actually, I'll be even more clear, even inside the accounting profession as to the different roles that exist. And I liked how you explained those. It's important that when we're explaining ourselves to our potential clients, that we correctly depict the services we're going to be offering and what they're paying to receive. And if that clarity is there, then that miscommunication or that misunderstanding could be avoided as to, I don't like my bookkeeper, they're not doing X, Y, and Z. Well, you're not paying them to do X, Y, and Z. They weren't asked to and they didn't offer to. So I like that clarification. But where you were describing this value and offering value-based services, it does enable you to actually charge more and get paid more because you're going deeper into the relationship that you have with that client and their financial situation. But what I was asking about is, what does value mean or look like relating to business or personal? I think individually we all have different perspectives as to what is value and worth. And as you were talking earlier about money relationships and so forth, I thought it would be smart to ask, what is value? How do we define that individually and perhaps even professionally when we're running our businesses? Because value can oftentimes be this elusive goal that we're all striving for. And unless we can define it, we're never going to know that we've even achieved it.
Yeah. So I think it really comes down to, obviously, everyone is unique in what they value and also what really brings them joy.
Mm-hmm.
So if we really get down to the core of it, I believe that we're all here to enjoy, to experience joy, to feel this high vibration. And that will look different for each one of us. And that's what I really believe value is that those things that we do or incorporate in our life, that we no longer have this linear time. So for example, when I speak to my best friend on the phone, it will feel like 10 minutes, but we will have sometimes been on the phone for over 4 hours.
Wow.
And it's just this connection. And for me, that's very high on my list for joy, is deep connection with those that I really, really love. And for someone else, it may be spending many, many months, hiking various mountains or climbing mountains and just being outside and feeling the sun on the back. We all have a different definition, and I think many of us have not been asked what really brings us joy and given us space to truly not just say, oh, X, Y, Z, but actually be able to reflect from within. And I think this value comes from this very intimate space within us, where if we're quiet enough, we will start to hear this inner wisdom. And these values, when we align ourselves with individuals who may share similar values, we then can really amplify this. And no value is good or bad. It just happens to be inherent with you, and I believe very connected to our divine purpose that we're here to serve.
Perfect. I liked how you described that, because when we do align with other people who have similar interests and values, it does amplify. I completely agree with you. It amplifies our desire to continue to do that. It increases our joy because we are in that same vibration. So I like how you described it. I'm going to switch up gears on us here a little bit, Amber. I'd like to dive into a few things that you mentioned earlier. You brought up travel as being one of the things that you enjoy, particularly tea in England and coffee in Italy. Uh, what is it that you enjoy about travel so much?
It's the connection. It's absolutely the connection. When I travel, it's just amazing what happens. And it's never something planned, but there will be, for example, a gas run with the bus driver in Ireland and being able to experience like what it looks like to fill up a bus in Ireland at the petrol station, and learning more about the way that they're living life and what brings joy to them and what matters to them. And so for me, travel is just truly being able to make additional connections and also experience things that really can sometimes change the way I may be thinking about something. So it gives a lot more perspective to what we may not be able to see that might be right behind us.
One of the things that I'm noticing as I'm speaking with you about this is you seem to be very present, very observant of your surroundings, and very conscious of those individuals around you. It seems like you're trying to take in not just your surroundings, but a lot of the elements that make up that environment. And that's very impressive. Some people are oblivious to their surroundings and they're not aware of what's going on. And yet you seem to be very attentive to even the minute details of those, just going to the petrol station and getting the gas, and being observant as to what that's entailing and involving it, and that this is that individual's livelihood that you're watching. That's fascinating. I like that. You also talked about bicycles. I'm just curious, what is that draw to you for the bicycles? You had the accident. Do you still bicycle? Do you still find that same satisfaction with it?
I do, thanks to EMDR. So, for those of you who don't know, EMDR is a technique that really allows us to eliminate any sort of emotional response we have to some type of trauma. So, it's very effective, and thankfully, I can ride my bike again and enjoy it. So, I value exhilaration. I was a skier all my life, and I love the wind in my hair, and I love that feeling of freedom, and I love that exertion of energy, whether it be on a high-speed boat or a roller coaster, but no bungee jumping for me. I really like my neck, but but I really love that feeling. And biking gives you that, but it also settles and satisfies a very deep desire of mine, which is efficiency and sustainability. So we're getting solar put on our house. We just moved recently across the country to my home state of New Mexico, and I'm so excited to be here. And we have incredible sun all day long. So we're getting solar put on, and then we have a little thing that's going to be put in our garage so that eventually when I have an electric car, it will also fuel that. And that just makes me feel so excited to know that we are generating and using energy for our house and our car. And so I think bicycling has done the same thing for me. It's just knowing that, a 3-mile bike ride is allowing me to get fresh air. My blood is moving, it's healthy. And at the same time, I'm being sustainable and I'm being efficient. And I just love that.
Very beautiful. I sincerely mean that. That's one of the things that I also enjoy when I'm out bicycling. The idea that I'm able to be in my own space and I can think clearly as I'm now going around different things. And I like to, in some instances, push myself. The mountain biking where you're doing the trail riding, it's very exhilarating because of the response time and the attentiveness you have to have to the course. And so lots of fun with that. Let's ask about knitting. You mentioned knitting. I'm curious, what is the thing with knitting?
Oh, so, you mentioned earlier that you sense a presence, like that I'm very present. That wasn't always the case. So actually, my very first venture into knitting was I was 24 and I was super stressed out. I was buying my first condo, and that was extremely scary for me, coming from a financial responsible person to just going, oh my gosh, this seems crazy. And so I called my mother and I said, I need you to show me how to knit. This has to help me with my nerves and my stress levels. Well, it turned out to be the opposite. It was so frustrating to try to figure out these 2 sticks and string. And I remember like when no one was in the room, I was in the realtor's office. I took it and I like threw it against the wall. I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to do this. This is horrible. So a few months later, after I purchased my home, my best friend tells me, you have to sit down. We're having a baby. And a week later, I was in Costco and I saw this book, big book on knitting. And I open it up and I see this blanket that I want to make. And I just saw it. And it turns out that this pattern was super complicated and not for a beginner. But besides that, I bought the book and I was so determined to make this blanket. And that's how it started. But what really I found when I actually gave myself space and time is it's a very soothing process. And it allows me to, in a way, it's a moving meditation. And I did this before I started meditating, but I would say the meditation, the transcendental meditation that I now do twice a day, has really helped contribute to this settling, to this presence. And the knitting is just a really beautiful, creative way to be in that without having to always be in meditation.
Yeah, as you describe it, what I'm imagining is that the knitting takes enough focus and concentration that it causes you to maybe disassociate from all the other stresses and just focus on it, and in turn then relax. So that's how I'm imagining what you're describing to me. So thank you. Now, let's do
Thanks
this
for
then. I'm
asking.
going to wrap this up. I'm going to share some insights that I have taken from today's conversation, and then I'm going to come back to you for a final thought, Amber. So let me go ahead and just kind of point out of a few things. One is going to be some offers that are available that you can go to the episode description and have access to. What it is Amber's providing for us a free profitability and revenue calculator that you can take a look at. And it's in the episode description that you'll find the information needed to go ahead and access that. In addition to that, there is also going to be there information regarding Money Management 101 Payday. It's a course designed to actually help people understand a little bit more about finances and their relationship with money that will complement very well the conversation that we're having today. It's a free course that you'll have access to actually help you better understand your personal finances. It is excellent to actually help you understand not only the numbers, but also discuss it better with individuals in your household, such as your spouse, your children, and educate them as well as to the financial obligations that we're all facing as adults when running our households, paying the bills, and so forth. An excellent course for you to take advantage of. But as a recap of our conversation today, one of the things that I just want to draw attention to is the fact that Amber has been very open and I would love to say genuine with her explanation of not only how she got into this position where she's now helping people have a better relationship with money, but it's the idea of really, do we clearly understand what our needs are financially, and have we reversed engineered what it will take to actually get that? And are we on the path to achieve it? If we have that clarity, then we can better understand our financial obligations and we can meet them. And the other thing that I also took from the conversation today is the peace, the tranquility that can come from being present. I really felt that with Amber, she was very intentional and deliberate in what she was sharing, and she opened up with some of her stories, such as the accident that she had on her bike. I personally have experienced that same experience. I went ahead and was riding a bike with my hands in my pocket, and we were racing down the road, and literally the front brake fell off of the frame into the front tire. It locked up, and right over the handlebars I went. And similar to Amber, the first thing that hit the ground for me was my face. And I hit
Mm.
literally on my chin, and it should have broken my jaw and my teeth. And Amber, as you were sharing that story, I was remembering how grateful I was also that I had my teeth. They weren't in my mouth. I wasn't chewing or swallowing these teeth that had become dislodged. My mouth was fine, my face was fine, and it was right here, my chin, that I hit first because my hands were in my pocket. I had nothing else but my head to go straight down with. And so
Mm.
your story resonated with me because it's those moments that I think give us pause. And like you shared, you ended up over in Bali, you ended up going in the direction of health, but you ended up working now with money and helping people have a better relationship with it. And as an accounting professional, that's something that I think is so important because it's one thing to prepare the financials, it's another thing to work with our clients to help them have better financial relationships and making better financial decisions. So, with that being said, I loved this conversation today. I felt it was very relevant for our listeners, and I'm grateful for your time having shared it. So, Amber, do you have a closing thought that you'd like to share today?
Well, I first just want to say thank you for sharing your story about your bicycle accident. I think it really truly stems from a place of if we're meant to be here, we're meant to be here. And we have something really big to happen. So I'm just so grateful that you're okay
Thank
and
you.
that it wasn't worse than it could have been. So the closing thought I would have is I really do want to stress the importance of filling your cup first. When you're starting a new business, or if you're thinking about starting a new business, if you start following people, you'll start hearing things like, make sure that you're focusing on that impact, on making sure that it's bigger than you. And that's all great advice, except when we're first starting out, it can feel really there can be a dissonance there because while we're trying to make sure that we're adding value and creating impact, if we don't have money for our mortgage, no one is going to do well. No one is going to feel the effects of your work. So in the beginning, please know that this is permission to embrace your own well-being as your primary concern when first starting. Because once you're a sustainable, profitable business, you will then have a chance to have so much more impact on the things that really matter beyond yourself. And it's something I wish I had heard when I first started, and I really struggled with that for a while, knowing that I needed to be making money to pay my bills, but I was being told to look bigger than me. And so that's what I would leave you with.
Excellent. Wonderful words of advice, and I appreciate it. Well, everyone, this has been an amazing episode. I appreciate you for listening and encourage you to listen to our other episodes. And of course, subscribe to this podcast so that you can get the notifications you need as to each of the episodes being released and so forth. With that being said, I always want to encourage you, if you would like to implement these strategies in your business or find out how you can actually apply these principles in your company, reach out to us at universalaccounting.com or give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care, have a great day, and be safe out there.